Prologue: it was the company's 1,000-person all-hands meeting, and my manager had just put me on blast. A public execution, live on screen. He told me my attitude was a problem, that I should pack my bags and get out. I was about to unmute my mic when a delicate, slender hand rested on my shoulder. A cool, clear voice came from behind me. "What problem? Tell me all about it." The next second, the corporation's elusive, almost mythical CEO appeared in my webcam's frame. Chapter 1: my face was plastered on the main screen of the company-wide Zoom call. A public crucifixion. He used my full name. Ethan Hayes. From the marketing department's team 3. "We've received a formal complaint about your work ethic. You will give me an explanation, right here, right now." My manager Mark Collins's voice buzzed through the laptop speakers, a whining fly that made my temples throb. On screen, I could see him leaning back in his chair, one leg crossed over the other, idly fiddling with a fancy Parker pen. He had the smug look of a man who knew he'd already won. He was savoring this. Nailing a subordinate he couldn't stand to the wall, humiliating him in front of everyone. In the grid of hundreds of video windows, countless pairs of eyes were watching me with keen interest. Some showed pity, others a sneer, and a few were clearly enjoying my misfortune. But most were just numb. It was the corporate world, after all. Some unlucky schmuck always gets sacrificed to make a point. Today, that schmuck was me. "Ethan, what's the matter? Cat got your tongue." Mark's voice climbed an octave, dripping with undisguised contempt. "Don't think you can just stay silent and skate by. I'm telling you, if you don't give me, and this company, a satisfactory answer today, you can pack your desk and get out." I took a deep breath, my nails digging into my palms. I'd been at this branch for 3 years. I kept my head down, worked hard, and never caused trouble. Mark Collins was my direct supervisor, an incompetent fool who'd gotten his job through nepotism. Last week, I'd refused to take the fall for a botched project he'd mishandled. He'd held a grudge ever since. I just never imagined he'd pull a stunt like this, a low-blow attack during a mandatory all-hands meeting. The so-called formal complaint was just a pretense he'd cooked up himself. My fists, clenched under the desk, were cracking. I was about to unmute my microphone and blow the whole thing wide open. The botched project, his incompetence, everything. If I was going down, I was going down swinging. Just then, the door to my home office creaked open. A figure slipped in silently, bringing a faint, pleasant fragrance with her. I froze, glancing over my shoulder. It was Isabella, my wife. She was wearing a silk robe, clearly having just showered. Her long, dark hair was still slightly damp, cascading over her shoulders. She wore no makeup, yet she was breathtakingly beautiful. She didn't seem to notice I was in a meeting. She walked straight up behind me, leaned down, and wrapped her long, pale arms around my neck. Her warm lips brushed against my ear, her breath soft and sweet. "Honey, are you busy? I brought you some fruit." Her voice was quiet, but my microphone was on. It carried her words to every single person on the call. In an instant, the entire Zoom meeting went dead silent. Every eye was now locked on my little video window. On the main screen, Mark Collins's triumphant expression froze solid. His eyes bulged, staring at the woman who had suddenly appeared behind me. His shock quickly morphed into a furious cocktail of jealousy and disgust. "Ethan Hayes, what do you think you're doing?" He was practically screaming, as if he was the one who'd been personally insulted. "It's the middle of the workday, and you're at home canoodling with some woman. Have you no professional decency? Do you have any respect for this company at all?" Isabella finally seemed to realize something was wrong. She straightened up, her cool gaze sweeping over the screen. She saw Mark's distorted face and the banner at the top, Stellara Corporation, mid-year review. Her perfect eyebrows furrowed slightly. Then she did something that caught everyone, including me, completely off guard. She pulled over a chair and sat down right next to me, positioning herself squarely in the camera's view. Hundreds of windows, hundreds of pairs of eyes, all watched as this gorgeous family member crashed the company's most important meeting of the year. Isabella ignored the shocked stares. She simply turned her head to look at me, her clear eyes asking a silent question. Then she faced the screen, her lips parting. "What problem? Tell me all about it." Chapter 2. Isabella's voice was cool and calm, but it landed like a depth charge in the silent meeting. Everyone was stunned. Who was this woman? What was she trying to do? Mark's face had turned a deep shade of purple. As far as he was concerned, this was no longer about my work ethic. This was a direct challenge to his authority. An employee's wife had the gall to interfere in an internal company meeting. Who the hell are you? Mark's spittle seemed to fly from the screen. This is a Stellara Corporation town hall, not your goddamn kitchen. Ethan, get a leash on your woman and get her out of here. His words were utterly vile. The warmth drained from my eyes. I could tolerate him humiliating me, but I would not stand for him insulting Isabella. I was about to lash out, but Isabella placed a hand on mine, stopping me. She looked at the raving man on the screen, not with anger, but with the faintest, almost playful smirk. I'm his wife, and this is my home. Do I need your permission to sit next to my husband in my own house? Her words shut him down completely. Mark slammed his desk in fury. Fine. Just fine, Ethan. First, you're fooling around during work hours, and now you're letting your little housewife disrespect a superior. You're a cancer in this company. I'm officially notifying you right now. You're fired. Effective immediately. Get out. He was roaring. A few of Mark's cronies started typing in the public chat, backing him up. Manager Collins is right. This kind of behavior needs to be punished. Totally unprofessional. What does he think this company is? One bad apple spoils the bunch. Fire him. Seeing these sycophants kick me while I was down, a cold wave washed over me. The playful look on Isabella's face vanished. She looked at Mark again, her eyes now arctic. You're firing him, you said? That's right. Mark, thinking he had her scared, grew even more arrogant. And not just him. I'm going to send out a corporate-wide memo. He'll be blacklisted. He'll never work in this industry again. Is that so? Isabella nodded slowly, her tone chillingly calm. Then tell me, do you have any idea who I am? Mark scoffed. I don't give a damn who you are. You could be the president's wife, and it wouldn't matter. In Stellara Corporation, what Mark Collins says goes. The moment he said that, I noticed something. In the top row of video windows, the one labeled David Peterson, Regional Director, a middle-aged man who had been resting with his eyes closed suddenly, snapped them open. David Peterson, the number 2 at our branch, and Mark's boss. His eyes were locked on Isabella's face, his pupils constricting violently. The color drained from his face. The hand holding his coffee mug began to tremble uncontrollably. Hot coffee sloshed onto his expensive slacks, but he didn't even seem to notice. His lips moved, but no words came out. Fear. It was a raw, soul-deep terror. Mark was still bellowing. Ethan, and you, his clueless wife, I'm giving you 3 seconds to get out of the camera's view. Or else, shut up. A terrified roar cut Mark off. It was David Peterson. He shot up from his chair as if he'd been tasered, screaming into his microphone. Collins, shut your goddamn mouth. The call once again fell into a stunned silence. Everyone was bewildered by the director's sudden, frantic outburst. Mark was floored, looking at his boss with a clueless expression. Mr. Peterson, what did I do wrong? Peterson ignored him. He faced his camera, fumbling to straighten his tie, which he'd knocked askew in his panic. Then, with an air of absolute reverence, of boundless dread, he inclined his head deeply toward my camera. Ms. Vance, I had no idea that you would be gracing us with your presence. My failure to manage my team is unforgivable. It's my fault. Please, punish me as you see fit. His voice was shaking uncontrollably. Chapter 3, Ms. Vance? Which Ms. Vance? That same question exploded in the minds of hundreds of people. Mark was completely dumbfounded. He stared at Peterson's near-total submission, then at the placid woman sitting beside me. His brain simply shut down. Mr. Peterson, are you sure you have the right person? He stammered. That's just Ethan's wife, a housewife. It was as if Peterson slapped him through the screen. You know nothing, you idiot. Peterson shrieked, his composure gone. Open your damn eyes and look. This is the chairwoman of the board and chief executive officer of Stellara Holdings, Isabella Vance. The Ms. Vance. Boom. Peterson's words were a nuclear bomb detonating in everyone's mind. The CEO of Stellara Holdings, Isabella Vance. To the average employee, that name was a legend. The rumors said she was young but brilliant, a titan of industry who, 3 years ago, had taken over the near-bankrupt Stellara and single-handedly dragged it from the brink, transforming it into a market leader. The rumors said she was as beautiful as a goddess, but as cold as ice, a ruthless executive known as the Ice Queen of the business world. But almost no one had ever seen her in person. And who could have possibly imagined that this legendary corporate empress would now be sitting in a silk robe, on camera, next to a low-level employee? And that she was that low-level employee's wife? The world seemed to stand still. Time and space lost all meaning. Every mind went blank, the only sound the frantic thumping of their own hearts. Mark Collins, the manager who had been so high and mighty just moments before, now wore an expression of pure, unadulterated horror. Shock, disbelief, terror, despair. A whirlwind of emotions twisted his face before it settled into a deathly gray. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no sound emerged. He started to sway in his chair before sliding out of it with a dull thud, crumpling to the floor in a heap. He was finished. That single thought was seared into his soul. He had, in front of hundreds of people, insulted the supreme ruler of the corporation, telling her to get out of here. He had threatened to make sure her husband never worked in this industry again. This wasn't just career suicide. This was jumping headfirst into a wood chipper. Isabella didn't spare the pathetic man on the floor a single glance. She didn't even acknowledge Peterson's groveling apology. Her gaze, from beginning to end, was fixed on me. She reached out and gently straightened my shirt collar, her touch impossibly soft. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. I shook my head, taking her cool hand in mine. "I'm fine. With you here, I'm more than fine." Those simple words made her expression soften instantly. She turned back to the screen, and the gentle look in her eyes once again became a wall of impenetrable ice. "David Peterson," she said, her voice flat. "Yes, Ms. Vance. Right here." Peterson jolted, his posture somehow becoming even more subservient. That man. Isabella's gaze finally fell upon Mark's pitiful video window. "I don't want to see him in any corner of Stellara Corporation ever again." Without a moment's hesitation, Peterson replied, "Understood. I'll handle it immediately. It's done. And you?" Isabella's attention shifted to Peterson. Peterson's heart seized in his chest, and a cold sweat drenched his back. Poor judgment in hiring. Incompetent management. Fostering a toxic work environment and tolerating insubordination. With every word Isabella spoke, Peterson's face grew another shade paler. "Your position as director is suspended, effective immediately. The assistant director will take over. You will write me a full post-mortem report on your failures, no less than 10,000 words. As for your future with this company, I'll decide after I've read it." "Yes, yes. Thank you, Ms. Vance. Thank you for your mercy." Peterson sounded as if he'd been granted a presidential pardon, his voice cracking with relief. After dealing with those two, Isabella's gaze slowly swept across the hundreds of silent, terrified windows on the screen. Anyone her eyes fell upon immediately looked down, barely daring to breathe. Those who had cheered on Mark in the public chat were now desperately trying to delete their messages, fumbling with their keyboards to no avail, wishing the ground would swallow them whole. Finally, Isabella's voice rang out again, clear and sharp. "This meeting is over. One more thing. I have a personal announcement to make." She paused, squeezing my hand a little tighter. Then she looked directly into the camera and said, each word perfectly enunciated and impossibly clear, "Ethan Hayes is my husband. From this day forward, anyone who touches a single hair on his head has an enemy in me, Isabella Vance, and an enemy in the entire Stellara Corporation. Period." Chapter 4. Isabella's words were ironclad. Every syllable landed like a hammer blow on the heart of every person listening. Make an enemy of her? Make an enemy of the entire Stellara Corporation? Who would dare? Who had that kind of death wish? The meeting was forcibly ended in an eerie, tomb-like silence. Hundreds of video windows vanished in an instant. Finally, the world was quiet. I looked at the woman beside me, the one who had just solved all my problems, and felt a complex mix of emotions. Why are you back so suddenly?" I asked. Her business trip to Europe was supposed to last at least 2 more weeks. Isabella stood up and stretched, the movement showcasing her perfect figure. I finished up early over there. I wanted to surprise you, so I didn't call. She walked over and playfully pinched my cheek. I guess the surprise was on me. Walked right into the middle of a drama. Her tone was teasing. My husband being publicly shamed and threatened with termination in his own company. I gave a wry, helpless smile. It wasn't exactly my plan. 3 years ago, Isabella and I had entered into a marriage of convenience. She was the heir to Stellara, and she needed a husband to solidify her position and silence the old guard on the board. I needed money, a lot of it, to save my sister who was in the hospital. We each had something the other needed. It was a simple transaction. After we married, she gave me the money. Her only condition was that we keep our relationship a secret. She said she didn't want her husband to live under the shadow of gossip, to be labeled a gold digger. She wanted me to have my own life, my own career. So I changed my name on my resume and got a job at a regional branch of Stellara, starting from the very bottom. For 3 years, we had lived mostly separate lives, always polite, always respectful, but distant. I believed our marriage was nothing more than a loveless contract. Until today, seeing her risk exposing our relationship to defend me in front of 1,000 people, seeing her declare war on the entire company for my sake. My heart, which had been dormant for 3 years, seemed to stir with a new kind of feeling. What are you thinking about? Isabella's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Just, what's for dinner? I said, grasping for an excuse. Isabella rolled her eyes, a gesture that was surprisingly alluring. Food is all you think about. But before we eat, we need to deal with a few flies. She picked up my phone. The screen was lit up with dozens of missed calls and over 100 unread messages on WhatsApp and iMessage. They were practically crashing the phone, all from my colleagues. Apologies, pathetic attempts at brown-nosing, desperate explanations that they were forced to agree with Mark. Their two-faced hypocrisy was sickening. I had no intention of replying to a single one. Isabella scrolled through them for a moment, then tossed the phone back to me. These people, what do you want to do with them? Whatever you want, I said quietly. Isabella smiled, a sly grin like a cat that had gotten into the cream. Good. You said it, not me. She took out her own phone and dialed a number. Hello, is this Lou? My assistant. It's Isabella Vance. You have 30 minutes. I want a list of everyone from the Atlanta branch, Marketing Team 3, who said anything negative about my husband in today's meeting. I also want their complete work histories and personnel files for the past 3 years. That's right. Don't miss a single one. Once you have the list, issue termination notices directly from corporate headquarters. The reason? Actions and personal character inconsistent with company values. And one more thing. Forward that list to every major recruiting firm in the industry. I don't want to see any of them find another job in this sector. She hung up, her actions swift and decisive. I looked at her, a little stunned by her ruthlessness. This wasn't just firing them. This was blacklisting them. Scorched earth. No quarter given. What? You think I'm being too harsh? Isabella raised an eyebrow. I shook my head. No, that's exactly how you deal with trash. Mercy to your enemies is cruelty to yourself. I understood that better than anyone. Isabella smiled, satisfied. Now, that's more like my husband. Just then, my phone began to ring wildly again. This time, it was an unknown number. I frowned and answered. Hello, is this Ethan? Mr. Hayes? A sycophantic, terrified voice came through the speaker. It's David Peterson, the director from the Atlanta branch. Mr. Hayes, no Ethan, my man. What happened earlier was all a huge misunderstanding. I was blind. I was an idiot. You're a bigger man than me. Please, don't hold it against me. Before I could speak, Isabella took the phone from my hand. David Peterson. Her voice was ice. On the other end, Peterson flinched so hard I could almost hear it. Ms. Vance, did you not understand my instructions? I understood. The report. 10,000 words. I'll start writing it right now. I won't be short a single word. Peterson said, his voice thick with unshed tears. Good, Isabella said flatly. Also, my husband worked under you for 3 years, and you, his director, had absolutely no idea who he was. It was my failure, a complete and total failure of my duties. Peterson sounded like he was ready to grovel through the phone. So, you still think you're qualified to hold the position of director? Peterson's heart sank into his stomach. He knew it was coming. Payback. Ms. Vance. You You can submit your resignation yourself, or I can have our legal department audit your finances. I'll resign. I choose the first one. I'll resign. Peterson didn't hesitate for a second. Getting fired just meant losing his job. If legal started auditing his books, all the shady deals he'd made over the years would come to light. He'd spend the rest of his life in prison. Smart choice. Isabella hung up and tossed the phone back to me like it was a piece of trash. A regional director, a man with significant power, was nothing more than an ant she could crush at will. This was power. This was my wife. Chapter 5. After dealing with Peterson, Isabella still seemed unsatisfied. She crossed her arms and paced my home office like an elegant, dangerous panther. "Something's not right," she said, stopping suddenly to look at me. "What's not right?" I asked. "A low-level manager like Mark Collins. Where would he get the nerve to launch a baseless attack on an employee during a company-wide town hall?" Isabella's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint in them. Someone must have put him up to it. My mind raced. She was right. Collins was arrogant, but he wasn't that stupid. Picking a fight during the company's most high-profile meeting was a cardinal sin. He was either a complete moron, or he thought he had powerful backing. "Who do you think it is?" I asked. Isabella walked to the window, gazing down at the traffic below, her voice cool. "The Atlanta branch's performance has been declining for years, but their profit reports always look fantastic. I've long suspected that someone there was cooking the books, embezzling funds. I was about to send an audit team down there to root out the cancer. It seems they decided to make a move before we could." She turned back to me. "Mark Collins was just a pawn they pushed forward to test the waters. They wanted to use you to make an example, to assert their dominance and solidify their control over the branch. Unfortunately for them, they picked the wrong person to make an example of." I understood instantly. This was a power struggle, rippling down from the top, and I had been the unlucky soul caught in the middle of the storm. "So what now?" I asked. Isabella walked over to me, hooking a finger under my chin, a smile playing on her lips. "What now? We play their game, of course. They want to play? Fine. I'll play with them. Honey, how would you like to be a special investigator?" I looked at the mischievous glint in her eyes, and my heart began to beat a little faster. The next day, a bombshell dropped and reverberated throughout Stellara Corporation. David Peterson, director of the Atlanta branch, had resigned for personal reasons. Mark Collins, marketing manager, had been terminated for gross misconduct, his name blacklisted throughout the industry. At the same time, over a dozen marketing employees were let go due to personal character issues. In a single day, the management of the Atlanta branch had been practically gutted. Everyone knew this was the calm before the storm. And the trigger for it all was that they had crossed a rank-and-file employee named Ethan Hayes. Overnight, the name Ethan Hayes became the most mysterious and feared name in the company. Everyone was speculating about my background. Some said I was the chairman's illegitimate son. Others whispered I was the CEO's boy toy. The rumors were wild. Meanwhile, that morning, I received an official appointment letter from corporate HR. I was appointed special investigator for the office of the CEO, effective immediately. My mandate: to inspect all operations of the Atlanta branch, audit all accounts, and question all personnel. My authority was absolute. Basically, I had been given a blank check from a board. In the Atlanta office, I had the power to act first and ask for permission later. I walked into the office holding that appointment letter. The colleagues who had ignored me yesterday now bowed and scraped when they saw me, greeting me from 10 feet away. "Morning, Ethan." "Ethan, did you get breakfast?" "I brought coffee and donuts." "Ethan, I wiped down your desk for you." I walked past them without a word, heading straight for what used to be Mark Collins' office. It was mine now. I had just sat down when there was a knock on the door. "Come in." A balding, middle-aged man with a beer belly walked in, his face plastered with a wide, fake smile. It was the general manager of the Atlanta branch, Al Henderson, the real big boss of this office. "Well, hello there, Mr. Hayes. Why didn't you give me a heads up you were coming? I would have met you downstairs." Henderson was overly enthusiastic, personally pouring me a cup of coffee. "That's not necessary, Mr. Henderson," I said coolly. "I'm just here to do my job." Of course," Henderson said, rubbing his hands together obsequiously. "Mr. Hayes, rest assured, our branch will cooperate fully with your investigation." Anything you need, just say the word. As he spoke, he pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase and slid it discreetly across the desk toward me. Mr. Hayes, a little something for our first meeting. Just a small token of my esteem. You're working so hard. This is just for coffee. I glanced down at the thickness of the envelope. At least 10 grand. I smiled. The fox was already showing its tail. Mr. Henderson, what's this supposed to be? I asked, playing dumb. The smile on his face grew wider. Oh, it's nothing. Just a friendly gesture. Mr. Hayes, you're a man on the rise. A bright future ahead of you. We're just hoping you might put in a good word for us with Ms. Vance now and then. That idiot Collins, he was blind not to see who you are. He got what he deserved for crossing you. I've already taken care of him, as a gesture of goodwill. From now on, we're all on the same team. So this investigation, perhaps it could be streamlined. He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. Take the money, sign off on a clean report, and leave. No harm, no foul. I leaned back in the large executive chair, looking at his greasy, smiling face, and found the situation almost funny. Al, do you really think I need your money? Chapter 6. The smile on Al Henderson's face froze. He stared at me, dumbfounded, as if he couldn't process what I just said. Mr. Hayes, what are you? I ignored him and picked up the office phone, dialing the front desk. Send 2 security guards up to Mr. Henderson's office. I paused. Correction, my office. After hanging up, I looked at Henderson. His expression had soured. Ethan Hayes, what the hell is your problem? He dropped the respectful Mr. Hayes, his tone now laced with anger. No problem, I said evenly. I just feel like the feng shui in this office is off. It needs a good cleaning. Henderson was shaking with rage. Don't push your luck. You think you can do whatever you want just because you have the CEO's protection? Let me tell you something. The Atlanta branch is my territory. You're just some kid, still wet behind the ears if you think you can run wild here. So the mask was off. Is that so? I smirked. Your territory? Not for long. Just as I finished speaking, the office door opened and 2 large security guards walked in. Mr. Hayes, you called for us? I pointed to Henderson, then to the thick envelope of cash on the desk. General Manager Al Henderson, during work hours, attempted to bribe me. The evidence is right here. Please escort him out of the building. Then call the police. The 2 guards glanced at each other, hesitating. After all, one was the general manager of the entire branch. The other was a special investigator from corporate. When gods fight, mortals get crushed. Seeing their hesitation, Henderson sneered. Don't be a fool, Hayes. These are my men. You think they'll listen to you? Really? I pulled the official appointment letter, stamped with the bright red seal of Stellara Holdings, from my desk drawer, and I slapped it down. Read it carefully. During my investigation, all branch personnel, including the security detail, are under my direct command. Failure to comply will be treated as corporate espionage, resulting in immediate termination and potential legal action. The guards' faces changed instantly. Without another moment of hesitation, they moved, each grabbing one of Henderson's arms. Sorry, Mr. Henderson. Get off me. You dare touch me. Henderson struggled wildly, his face contorted in a furious snarl. Ethan Hayes, you just wait. I'll get you for this. I watched his pathetic retreat without a flicker of emotion. Soon the entire office knew. On his very first day, the new investigator, Ethan Hayes, had the general manager, Al Henderson, arrested. The charge, bribery. It sent shockwaves through the building. Everyone was stunned by my swift and brutal methods. This wasn't an investigator. This was a corporate raid. For the rest of the afternoon, there was a parade of people outside my office. Department heads lined up to report on their work. Every single one of them looked terrified, as if they were walking on eggshells. I didn't see any of them. I just had my temporary assistant spread the word. All mid-level managers and above are to prepare all project files and financial statement from the last 3 years. We will meet in the main conference room tomorrow morning at 9. I will be hearing your reports one by one. The message went out, and a palpable sense of dread fell over the entire branch. A lot of people didn't sleep that night. The next day, 9 a.m. sharp, I walked into the conference room. It was filled with the branch's management team. They all had dark circles under their eyes and looked as haggard as if they were attending a funeral. I took the seat at the head of the table. Behind me stood the legal and audit teams I'd brought from headquarters. "Let's begin," I said coolly. "Finance department, you're first." The finance director, a woman in her 40s, stood up, trembling. She started her presentation, clicking through a PowerPoint slideshow. I wasn't listening to her corporate jargon. My eyes were fixed on the screen behind her, where my audit team had projected a list of financial discrepancies they'd uncovered overnight. "Director Miller," I interrupted, "the West Side real estate project. Can you explain the $30 million line item for promotional expenses?" As far as I can tell, that project never had any large-scale promotional campaign. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. That was... Mr. Henderson arranged for that. Al Henderson? I scoffed. He's currently in a police station. Do you really think blaming him is going to help you? Director Miller's lips trembled, but she couldn't form a single word. Can't explain it. Fine. Next. Procurement. The head of procurement stood up, his legs shaking. "Mr. Davis, explain to me why our office computers were purchased at a 30% markup over market price. And this shipment of printer paper, why is it a no-name, off-brand product?" I went through them one by one. Every name I called, a face turned ashen. Every question I asked, another festering wound was exposed. Fake invoices, kickbacks, low-quality substitutions, phantom projects. This branch was rotten to the core. And the architects of it all were Al Henderson and his inner circle. They were like termites, eating the company from the inside out, leaving nothing but a hollow shell. Halfway through the meeting, a few of the weaker ones broke down completely, sobbing as they confessed to their crimes. Outside the conference room, police sirens grew closer. I had called them. I looked at the pathetic, crumbling group before me, my eyes cold as steel. "I'm going to give you all one chance. Confess everything now, and you might get a plea deal. Keep resisting, and you can get ready to spend a very long time in prison." My words were the final straw that broke the camel's back. The conference room descended into chaos. Chapter 7. By the time the 3-hour meeting was over, half the branch's management team had been led away in handcuffs. The other half were left trembling, awaiting the final verdict from corporate headquarters. The Atlanta branch, the personal kingdom Al Henderson had built over nearly a decade, had collapsed in a single day. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the general manager's office, looking out over the bustling city. I felt nothing. I knew this was just the beginning. Taking down one Al Henderson was easy. Cleaning up the toxic mess he left behind and rebuilding the entire branch, that would be the hard part. My phone rang. It was Isabella. "Honey, you did a good job." Her smiling voice came through the phone. "Is it all settled?" "Mostly," I said. "There's a huge mess to clean up. Don't rush. Take your time." Isabella's voice was gentle. "I've already sent a new management team down. They'll give you their full support. As of now, you're the highest-ranking executive in the Atlanta branch. For all intents and purposes, you're in charge. Do whatever you think is necessary. Don't hesitate for a second. The entire corporation is behind you." Hearing her words, a warmth spread through my chest. This feeling of being unconditionally trusted and supported, it was a good feeling. "Oh, by the way," Isabella said, as if suddenly remembering something. "Mark Collins and the others who were fired. What are your thoughts on them?" I paused. "What happened to them? What do you think?" Isabella's tone was dismissive. "They've been blacklisted. No reputable company in the industry will touch them. I heard Collins went to Al Henderson's wife to beg for help, and she had him beaten up and thrown out like a stray dog. He's probably hiding in some dark corner right now, crying his eyes out with regret. Do you want me to have someone checking on him?" "No, that's not necessary," I said, shaking my head. For a person like Mark, losing everything was a punishment worse than death. He was a complete and utter failure. I didn't need to waste any more energy on him. "As you wish," Isabella didn't press. "So, when are you coming home? I'm all alone here, and I'm bored." Her voice had a hint of a pout, a subtle invitation. My heart skipped a beat. "I'll be back as soon as things are stable here." "Okay, I'll be waiting." After we hung up, the smile on my face lingered. Maybe this marriage of convenience wasn't so bad after all. For the next month, I worked around the clock. With the help of the new team from headquarters, I implemented a series of sweeping reforms across the Atlanta branch. I eliminated redundant departments, restructured the workforce, and established new, transparent company policies. One by one, I promoted talented employees who had been overlooked because they weren't good at office politics. The entire atmosphere of the company changed. A month later, the branch's operations were back on track, and our performance metrics were showing a clear, visible improvement. Everyone in the office had come to respect and admire their new boss, Mr. Hayes. One evening, I was finishing up the last file on my desk, getting ready to head home. My assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Hayes, there's a woman downstairs asking to see you." She said her name is Jessica Reed. Jessica Reed? I frowned at the sound of her name, a name I hadn't thought about in a very long time. My ex-girlfriend. Chapter 8, I met Jessica in the coffee shop in our building's lobby. She looked the same as I remembered, perfectly applied makeup, designer clothes, and the latest Hermes bag slung over her arm. But there was a weariness in her eyes, an anxiety she couldn't quite hide. When she saw me, she forced a smile. "Ethan, it's been a long time." "It has," I said, nodding as I sat down across from her. You're doing well for yourself?" she asked, her eyes filled with a complicated mix of emotions. "I'm doing okay," I said flatly. An awkward silence fell between us. 4 years ago, Jessica and I were the couple everyone envied in college. When we graduated, I proposed. She turned me down. She told me she was tired of struggling, of living paycheck to paycheck with me. She said I could never give her the life she wanted. Then she turned around and left me for a rich kid. That rich kid was Mark Collins. That's right. The same arrogant, pathetic manager who had tried to ruin me was the man who had stolen my girlfriend. The day we broke up, Mark had pulled up in his new BMW, his arm around Jessica. He rolled down the window and sneered at me. "Hey, buddy, take a good look. This is what real life is. A broke loser like you could never give this to Jessica." Jessica sat in the passenger seat and never once looked at me. We hadn't spoken since. I never imagined, after 4 years, that we would meet again like this. "Ethan," Jessica finally broke the silence, biting her lip as if steeling herself. "Mark, something happened to him. You know about it, don't you?" "Edo." "Then, can you please let him go?" She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "He knows he was wrong. He really does. He has nothing now. He lost his job. He's a wreck." I looked at her and almost laughed. Let him go. When he was humiliating me in front of 1,000 people, when he was threatening to blacklist me from the entire industry, did you ever think about letting me go? Jessica's face went pale. I know what he did was wrong, but he's already paid the price. "Ethan, we were together once. For the sake of what we had, can't you just forgive him this one time?" "What we had?" I scoffed. "Is there anything left of what we had? Jessica, are you really here for Mark? Or are you here for yourself?" Jessica flinched as if I'd struck a nerve. With Mark gone, her life of luxury, funded entirely by him, was over. She had come here today under the guise of pleading for him, but in reality, she was testing the waters. Testing to see if I had any lingering feelings for her. Testing to see if she had a chance to get back with me. She had made a serious miscalculation. I took a sip of my coffee. "Jessica, people have to live with the consequences of their choices. You chose Mark. Now you have to deal with the fallout. As for me, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. The only reason I agreed to meet you today was to finally close the book on our past." With that, I stood up, pulled a few bills from my wallet, and placed them on the table. "This coffee is on me. Don't come looking for me again." I turned and walked out of the coffee shop without a backward glance. Behind me, I could hear Jessica's muffled sobs, but I didn't turn back. Some people, once you lose them, are gone for good. Stepping outside, the evening sun was bright. I looked up and saw a familiar red Porsche parked by the curb. Isabella was leaning against the car door. She was wearing a sharp white pantsuit, her long hair flowing over her shoulders, a warm smile on her face as she watched me. "Honey, what are you doing here?" I asked, surprised. "I came to pick up my special investigator and take him home," she said, walking over and linking her arm through mine naturally. "Is everything taken care of?" she asked. "Yeah, good." She stood on her toes and gave me a light kiss on the cheek. "Come on, let's go home. I made your favorite pot roast." I looked at her radiant smile, and the last lingering shadows in my heart vanished completely. Really, what more could I ask for? I had a family that loved me, a thriving career, and the best wife in the entire world. As for the people and events of the past, it was time to let them go. I squeezed Isabella's hand and walked with her to the red sports car. As we got in, Isabella started the engine and asked, in a casual, offhand way, "So, was it your gold-digging ex-girlfriend?" My heart stuttered. "How did you know?" Isabella shot me a look in the rearview mirror. "Please, don't forget who I am. I could find out everything there is to know about your great-great-grandparents if I wanted to." I was speechless. "Umph," Isabella sniffed, a barely perceptible note of jealousy in her voice. "She's not even that pretty. Not as pretty as me, anyway." "Of course not," I replied, my survival instincts kicking in a high gear. "In my eyes, my wife is the most beautiful woman in the world." The corners of Isabella's lips turned up in an involuntary smile. "You'd better believe it." The car merged into the evening traffic, heading home. Soft music played on the stereo, and the sunset outside was as beautiful as a painting. I looked at the woman beside me, this wonderfully, endearingly complicated person, and my heart felt full. Maybe our story started as a contract, but I was ready to make it real. For the rest of our lives.